Devastating struggles. Single mom buys formula with quarters. CEO's insane gesture will haunt you. The dingy store on the corner of Maple and Fifth was too quiet that afternoon. The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry bees, flickering above rows of barely stocked shelves that smelled like stale bread and old desperation. A single mom, weary from the weight of the world, clutched her crinkled grocery list. Her hands trembled as she dug through the depths of her pockets, pulling out metal coins, quarters, dimes, and nickels piled together like dreams long deferred. This was the cost of her child's survival, 2 cans of formula that meant everything to her baby and far too little to a system that never seemed to care. As she fumbled with loose change, the store manager eyed her suspiciously, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. The fluorescent lights cast shadows across his face, making the creases around his mouth deeper, more pronounced. He shook his head as she counted, each metal clink echoing in her chest like a beating drum, amplifying the tension. The people behind her, glazed-over eyes and judgmental whispers, didn't he miss a beat? What kind of mother can't even afford formula? One muttered, an undertone of cruelty threading through the air. Just then, the door swung open, and the atmosphere shifted like a gust of wind. A man in an impeccably tailored suit entered, the sort of guy you'd expect to see on TV, someone who belonged in a world far beyond this dingy grocery store. He scanned the scene, and time seemed to freeze as his piercing gaze landed on the frazzled mother. He stepped closer, and the crowd fell silent. Who was he? What was he doing here, in a place that felt forgotten by the outside world? "Excuse me," he said, his voice smooth but commanding. "What is going on here?" The mom looked up, her heart pounding, unsure of whether to feel relief or more fear. "I'm just trying to buy food for my son," she stammered, the lump in her throat growing heavier. He watched her with intensity, the world around them fading until it felt like only they existed in that cramped, fluorescent-lit store. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." "Listen," he said, reaching into his pocket. The mom's heart raced. Was he going to help? Did he hold the answer to her struggles? But instead of cash or a credit card, he pulled out an envelope, thick, sealed, and mysterious. He handed it to her, his expression almost unreadable. "Open it later." Then, he turned on his heel and vanished out the door as swiftly as he had arrived, leaving an electrifying presence in his wake. She held the envelope like it was a bomb ready to explode, uncertainty swirling in her stomach. The other patrons murmured, shock painted on their faces. What just happened? Had this mysterious CEO just, in a blink, altered the course of her life? What lay within that envelope? Questions danced in her mind as she glanced down at her quarters, every piece of change feeling heavier now. She could tell this was far from over, a ripple of intrigue expanding in her heart. Something had shifted, and she could sense it, whispers of hope tangled with chains of disbelief. What would she find inside? What could this moment mean for her son? The door swung again, and she steeled herself. Maybe the mysteries weren't just for her alone. What about the other storegoers? What would they say when they found out what had really happened today? It was just the beginning. The fluorescent lights buzzed on, casting sharp shadows that seemed to flicker like the mom's racing heartbeat. Her fingers brushed over the sealed envelope, and a chill ran down her spine. Who was that man? Why had he chosen her out of everyone in the store? The stares of the other patrons burned into her back. Some looked on with skepticism, while others were still processing what had just transpired. "What's in that envelope?" whispered a voice from behind her. Ignoring the question, she turned her focus to the shelf filled with neutral baby formulas, her palms slick with sweat. This was supposed to be a simple errand. 2 cans would get her through the week. But now, the weight of uncertainty pressed harder than ever. Should she turn the envelope over in her hands? Her breath quickened. "Just open it," shouted another customer, laughing, as if the situation was a joke. But there was no humor in her plight. "Please, just let me be," she mumbled, desperate to disappear. At that moment, the store manager pushed away from the counter, his disapproval wrapping around her like barbed wire. "You don't have that money, do you? This is a store, not a charity." His voice dripped with contempt. "You should think about getting a real job instead of relying on handouts." His words landed like heavy stones. The horror of her situation crashed over her like waves. What she needed was not scorn but help. With a lump in her throat, she pocketed the envelopes, her fingers shaking. She approached the counter, but doubt gnawed at her. What if this wasn't really help? But then she thought of her son, his sweet face smiling up at her. "2 cans of formula, please," she demanded, summoning whatever strength remained. As the manager scanned the items, she felt the burden of the quarters in her pocket weighing heavier with each passing moment. The soft tinkling of coins echoed in her mind, each sound amplifying her shame. The manager's eyes reflected no sympathy, only judgment as he gave a curt nod of dismissal, but just as she turned to leave, the door swung wide open again. A couple entered, mid-argument, their raised voices slicing through the air. Time seemed to stop. The man looked like he was ready for a fight, his fists clenched. "You have to take responsibility," he shouted, pointing in the woman's face. It felt so surreal. Why did they come here of all places? In the chaos, the tension in the room thickened. The mom's heart skipped as the couple's confrontation unfolded. She could feel the air grow thicker with anticipation and fear. "Just, go home, okay?" the woman replied, eyes glinting with tears. "Bring back the man I married." Unbeknownst to her, the words landed harshly, triggering something inside the single mom. It was the very weight she had been carrying, the pain of dependencies, the longing for support, the yearning for people to really see her. Suddenly, there was a loud crash. The man slammed a nearby display, sending cans rolling across the floor. The crowd gasped, tension snapping like a fragile thread. "Enough!" he yelled, shaking. In that fraught atmosphere, the mom realized that life's struggles weren't hers alone. Each person in the store carried their burdens, hidden but palpable. She looked back at the envelope, clenching it with renewed resolve. There had to be something more, something better waiting for her. As she stepped outside, the world felt changed. Sunlight poured down, nearly blinding her. What awaited her? Should she open the envelope now or trust that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to shift dramatically? The question hung in the air like a whispered promise of hope. But little did she know, the true secret of that envelope would pull her deeper into a battle she never anticipated. Would the answers set her free or entangle her further? The moment was creeping closer. The warmth of the sun felt foreign against her skin as she stepped into the street, the coolness of the grocery store replaced by an unsettling heat. She held the envelope tightly in her palm, fingers wrapping around it like it was a lifeline. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing her growing impatience. What had she gotten herself into? With the world buzzing around her, she glanced at the parking lot, her breath hitching as memories of past conflicts rushed through her mind. What if that envelope contained some dark secret? The thought alone made her stomach flip. She needed to know, but fear held her in place, like her son in his crib, relying on her to be strong. As she walked to her car, her eyes darted from one passerby to the next. Did they know? Did they see the weight she carried? Onlookers shuffled, some shooting brief glances at her, while others remained blissfully ignorant, their lives untouched by the desperation surging in her veins. She reached her car, the small yellow sedan that had been her trusty steed for years, and paused, hand on the door. Just a moment. She convinced herself. Just a quick peek, her breath caught in her throat as she opened the envelope, pulling out a single sheet of paper. Handwritten, the letters curled and flowed into messy lines. The words felt like daggers as she read, "Help is coming. Trust in the plan." What did it mean? Who was helping her? She raked her fingers through her hair, trying to calm the storm brewing inside her. What plan? Panic fluttered at the edges of her mind. What if it was some cruel trick? This was all too surreal, shoplifting in a grocery store, escaping with vague promises. The sound of a horn jolted her back to reality, and as she looked up, a man approached her car, wearing a suit that screamed authority. The stark contrast of his pristine appearance against her disheveled state sent an immediate chill down her spine. He looked familiar somehow, but in a way that made her skin crawl. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice smooth as silk, but it held an unyielding edge. "You received an envelope earlier, yes? I need a moment of your time." Her heart raced. She took a cautious step back, uncertainty flooding her senses. Who was this man? The dread coiled around her neck, suffocating her resolve. "Who are you?" She managed to stammer, but the words felt weak and feeble. "A friend," he replied. His eyes were sharp, assessing her, as if she were an intricate puzzle he was eager to solve. "I'm here to discuss the next phase." The next phase? What was he talking about? She almost wanted to dismiss him outright, but curiosity intermingled with fear. He reached into his coat pocket, producing another envelope, a neatly sealed, stark white counterpart to the one she held. "I assure you, you're not in danger." The word assure echoed. His confidence was unsettling. Was he lying? Was this all a ploy? "Just open it," he urged, a slight smile playing on his lips. A heavy silence draped the air, not a single sound except the bass of her heart thumping against her ribs. Without thinking, she took a tentative step closer, then hesitated. Was this the answer she was seeking? Perhaps another layer peeling back, or more confusion heaped upon her already tumultuous life? "Do it," he pressed gently yet firmly, as if sensing her reluctance. "Your future depends on it." His words hung in the air, drenched in gravity. Should she open it? Could she really trust this man? What was waiting for her behind that seal? Just then, the door swung wide open again, a figure bursting through the crowd, wild-eyed and frantic. "Stop! Don't listen to him." Fear twisted her stomach. The figure called out, racing toward them. Breath hitching, she stood frozen. Choices surrounded her, and in that moment, it became eerily clear, the truth was about to unravel, and she was at the center of it all. How would it all shake out? Would she finally unearth the secrets that had been festering in the shadows? Time spun around her, and she held her breath, preparing for what was to come. The voice echoed in her ears, slicing through the thick tension like a shard of glass. The man in the suit turned sharply at the approaching figure. Panic surged in her, shrinking her world down to that one moment. The figure was small but filled with urgency, limbs flailing as they dashed towards her. It was a woman, hair flying wildly and eyes wide, like she had just sprinted a marathon. "Don't trust him," she shouted, the desperation in her voice crackling like static. "He is here for you, but not for your sake." She froze, torn between the warning and the composed man before her. His demeanor shifted slightly, his smile faltered, replaced with a look of irritation. "This doesn't concern you," he said sharply, as if waving away a fly. The woman hurtled closer, nearly out of breath. "He is lying. We need to get out of here, now." The words registered as a jolt, sending electricity down her spine. Was this woman truly a friend? Fear and confusion roiled inside her, battling for dominance. Was her instinct leading her to danger or salvation? "A friend, huh?" The man in the suit drawled, folding his arms across his chest. "And why should you trust her? What do you really know about her?" Her mind raced. Who was this man? She cast a quick glance at the woman, searching for an explanation in those wild eyes. Instead, she found only intensity, determination fought through the storm of fear. "Please," the woman urged, reaching out. "You need to come with me. They're watching us all. We can't stay here." "Stop," the man interjected, pointing a finger at the woman as if warding off a beast. "You don't understand the risks. What's in that envelope could change everything for you." A flicker of danger brushed her senses. The speed of the confrontation blew against the steady cadence of her chaotic heart. The unknown felt both thrilling and terrifying. "What do you mean?" she whispered, words slipping out before she could weigh them. "That envelope," he said smoothly, leaning slightly closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "It has the power to protect your son, to ensure a safer future if you trust me." "But that's not what someone says when they're telling the truth," the woman spat, her voice urgent. "Just come with me, let us go." Sweat formed at her brow as the two figures faced off, each trying to wrench her to their side. She could feel the heat, the weight of their expectations pressing down heavily on her. Each second dragged out, the air thick with unspoken prophecies. Choosing between them felt like a leap from a cliff. What if one of them was right and the other was lying? How could she protect her son? What if she made the wrong move? A distant shout from the parking lot cut through the fray. A blur of men in dark jackets began to advance toward them, faces angry and intent. Her heart plummeted, they were coming closer. "Now, please!" the woman shouted, grasping her arm. "We have to go, or they'll take you." "Wait!" the man snapped, his collected aura fracturing. "You don't want them to catch you. Choose wisely." The world honed into a single point of focus, and she felt time slow as panic clawed up her throat. Trusting one over the other seemed a fatal gamble, yet as the men closed in, her instinct screamed at her to run. With that final surge of urgency punctuating the air, she turned, ready to sprint toward the woman. But just as she took the first step, the man lunged forward, his voice a harsh whisper spinning its way through her thoughts. "You'll regret this." The warning hung heavy as she dashed away, adrenaline igniting her legs. The envelope slipped from her fingers, forgotten in the pulse of the moment. As she ran, 1,000 questions raced through her mind. Her heartbeat pounded louder than ever, driving her onward. What had she just fled? What truly lay at the heart of this chaotic web? And most painfully, would she be able to protect her son against whatever shadows were closing in? With the two figures fading in her rear view, a new realization dawned. Where would she find safety now? Would the woman lead her to freedom, or into a deeper trap? The answers lurked somewhere in the dark, just out of reach. And she was racing headfirst into uncertainty, leaving a trail of questions in her wake. The true danger was just beginning. Her breath came in sharp gasps, the kind that clawed at her throat as she raced away from the chaos. The parking lot loomed ahead, illuminated by flickering streetlights, casting eerie shadows that danced along the pavement. Every step felt heavy with the weight of uncertainty, yet adrenaline burned through her veins, propelling her forward. The woman by her side darted left, pulling her into the shadows of a nearby alley. "This way!" she urged, urgency twisting her voice, guiding her deeper into the darkness. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed behind them, a reminder that danger was tangible and chasing them relentlessly. "Who are you?" she demanded, stealing a breath as they pulled safely behind a rusted dumpster. "Why are you helping me?" The woman's eyes were fierce, shimmering with a mix of fear and determination. "I'm someone who knows the truth. If we stick together, we can find a way out of this mess. But right now, we need to move." Every nerve screamed as she searched the shadows for their pursuers. What truth? What was in that envelope? "It's more than you understand," the woman replied, her voice steady but wild. "That man is part of something dangerous. If they get to you, they'll take your son." The thought twisted like a knife in her gut. "My son, what do you know about him?" The woman glanced away briefly, her expression betraying a hint of empathy. "I know that the world isn't what it seems. And I can't let you go back to him with that man's influence looming over you." A loud shout from the direction they'd come sent icy terror shooting through her chest. She couldn't imagine what would happen if they were caught. The image of her son flashed in her mind, innocent, unaware, and in potential peril because of her choice. "Listen," the woman said, leaning in, heat radiating from her body. "We need a plan. If we take too long, they'll corner us." Her heartbeat drummed with urgency. "What's the plan?" The woman scanned the alley, her jaw tightening. "We'll head to that building across the street. I know a way to get out. But you have to trust me completely." She hesitated, torn again by uncertainty. "How can I trust you?" "You're right, this is all insane." "Because I've been where you are," the woman said, voice softening. "I lost my chance to protect my own child once. I won't let you make the same mistake." Inside, a flicker of something ignited a sense of kinship and urgency. "Okay, then let us go." They crept out of the alley, sliding behind a row of parked cars as they navigated the lot. Her eyes darted around, searching for any sign of the men in dark jackets. Each shadow felt threatening, each sound like a warning bell. Almost there, the woman whispered, her voice a steadying presence against the rising panic within her. But before they reached the street, a flash of movement caught her eye. The man in the suit appeared at the alley's mouth, his expression twisted into a sinister grin. "There you are," he called, voice smooth like ice. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Panic squeezed her heart. "Run!" she shouted, pulling the woman with her. They sprinted toward the building, heartbeats racing, adrenaline surging, but the suit was faster. She felt his shadow looming closer and closer, each step echoing the warning that grew louder in her own mind. Would they escape? Just as they reached the entrance, a hand shot out, grabbing her arm in a vice grip. "You're not getting away that easily." The cold terror seeped into her soul. She twisted, desperate to break free, but it was too late. The world spiraled into chaos as darkness surged around her, and then, a deafening roar erupted from the street. Was it her chance? In that heart-stopping moment, she glimpsed a bright light and caught sight of the woman's wide eyes, mouth moving but sound lost in the tumult. What if this was the point of no return? Before she could fully grasp what was happening, everything shifted. The darkness pulled her under, rocked by voices, confusion and uncertainty swirling like a tempest in her mind. Who was truly out there to save her? The answer remained shrouded in the shadows, but one thing was clear: she needed to find it fast. What lay ahead would test her resilience like nothing before. But she had to ask herself, was she about to be taken into relief or deeper into danger? The darkness loomed, closing in with a promise. The true battle of her life was only just beginning. The roar of the street swallowed everything, blurring the edges of her reality. As the darkness threatened to consume her, something fierce sparked within. She yanked her arm free from the iron grip just as panic surged through her veins. "Get down!" The woman beside her shoved her toward the ground just as chaos erupted. She could hear the sound of skidding tires and screeching brakes slicing through the noise, a car barreling toward the entrance with lights flashing like beacons of hope. Was this salvation, or was it a predator coming to claim them? Before she could decipher it, the suited man stumbled back, momentarily blinded by the glare. It was all the opening they needed. The woman grabbed her hand, urging her up. Now! They darted inside the building, breathless, with the echo of their footsteps drumming against the concrete. The air was thick with dust and an unsettling stillness, a stark contrast to what they had escaped. Shattered glass glimmered on the floor beneath their feet, remnants of an abandoned life that felt endless and haunting. "Where are we?" she gasped, looking around frantically for an exit. "We're safe for now," the woman assured her. "But we need to find a way out before he recovers." A heavy silence filled the air, weighed down by the ominous dread that lingered. Shivering, she peered through a cracked window. Outside, chaos swirled. The man in the suit shouted into a phone, his demeanor taking on an air of malevolent precision. They went inside. "Block the exits," he barked, his eyes narrowing, skimming the perimeter. "They won't stop until they have you," the woman said, her voice a cold whisper. "We can't stay here." The reality of her words hung like a noose. She had thought she'd find safety in this stark structure, a refuge, of sorts. But now it felt like a trap with no way to escape. "Do you have a plan?" she asked, her hands trembling, fear twisting her stomach into knots. "The basement. If we can get there, we might find a way out the back," the woman replied, motioning her forward. "Follow me quietly." They moved quickly, the fear of being discovered lurking like a predator just behind them. Each step echoed in the dark hallways, a reminder of how exposed they truly were. A thick layer of dust lay on everything, covering the memories of a life left behind. It was chilling, as if the building itself were mourning. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed above. Something heavy crashed down, rattling the structure, and dust clouded the air. "Hurry!" the woman urged, eyes wide with fear. They reached a door at the end of the hall. She couldn't tell if it led to salvation or despair. Her heart raced as she pushed it open, the smell of damp earth enveloped them, the darkness ahead swallowing any sense of comfort. "Down there." The woman pointed to a set of steep stairs disappearing into the void. Without question, they descended. Each step felt like a leap into uncertainty. The air thickened, her lungs tight. They reached the bottom, where faint light flickered, revealing a small, cluttered room. She gazed around, searching for something they could use, a tool, a weapon, anything. A rusted old pipe lay in the corner, a sense of desperation clawing at her throat. The woman placed her hand on her shoulder. "We're running out of time. We have to move now." With one last look at the room, she grabbed the pipe, its weight heavy in her hand. They climbed back up the stairs, ready to face whatever awaited them. As they emerged from the shadows into the dim hallway, a sudden scream pierced the air, a man's voice, laced with fury. "They're down there." The woman's eyes widened. "They know. We must go. Now." They sprinted toward the other exit at the back, thrusting the door open, when the cold air met them like a slap. The city lights pulsed in the distance, but fear shackled her heart. Would their shadows lead them to safety or the jaws of betrayal? Outside, the street was desolated, abandoned cars littering the lot like forgotten dreams. The silence felt ominous, a predator gathering its breath. All she could think about was her son. The thought fueled her panic. Would they find him in time? Where to now? She panted. The woman darted left. "We need to stay low. We can't let him see us." As they crept forward, every instinct screamed at her to run. But a rustle nearby made them freeze. Hope and fear intertwined in every heartbeat as a pair of dark figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glinting with deceit. The woman's grip tightened on her wrist. "Hold on," she whispered, bracing for whatever came next. But what if it was too late, and they were already in the snare? In that split second before the confrontation, a horrifying realization dawned on her. What if the true danger had been hiding closer than she ever thought, right where trust had lured her? The figures stepped forward, shadows creeping with a malevolence that snuffed out the last flickers of hope. She barely had time to register their faces, contorted with malice and intent, before the air thickened with the tension of a tightly drawn bowstring. "Run!" the woman shouted, her voice breaking through the fear that threatened to paralyze her. They twisted in sync, sprinting back toward the building, hearts pounding like war drums, but it was too late. A voice thundered behind them. "Stop!" The command cut through the night, and instinct jolted her into action. They bolted through the door they had just escaped, the cold metal slamming behind them as she frantically searched for a place to hide. Adrenaline surged as they ducked behind a cluster of rusted crates in the dim glow of emergency lights overhead. The crates spilled over with debris, tinged with the familiar scent of rot and decay. She held her breath, her chest heaving, waiting for the footsteps to draw nearer. "Can you hear them?" the woman whispered, her eyes scanning the gloom. "They're searching." She nodded, every nerve ending alive with dread. But she couldn't afford to think about that now. Her thoughts spiraled back to her son. Was he safe? Did he know she was coming for him? A quick movement caught her attention, a glimpse of one of the men materializing just beyond their refuge. Heart racing, she gripped the old pipe tightly, the cold metal biting into her palm. Could she really fight her way through? Then came the sickening sound of laughter. It reverberated off the walls, oily and thick. "You think you can run from us?" The voice dripped with certainty. There was a harsh clinking sound, and she understood all too well what it meant. They weren't alone anymore. "Stay quiet," the woman hissed, but doubts clawed at her insides. Fear was a suffocating blanket, pressing down on her, as they waited, trapped in a web of claustrophobic silence, but determination flickered within her. This couldn't be it. It couldn't end here. If her son was still out there, she had to keep moving. As their pursuers began to close in, a thought struck her: a nearby vent. It was old, rusted, but it might lead them away from the danger sweeping through the building. "The vent," she whispered urgently, pointing toward the ceiling. "Are you crazy?" The woman shot back, panic etched in her features. "It's our only shot," she insisted, desperation igniting her voice. "We can't wait for them to find us." The woman hesitated just a moment too long, and in that time, the laughter drew closer, thick and taunting. "They're right here, boys. Shouldn't it be too hard to catch a couple of scared mice? Now," she urged. They scrambled to the vent, lifting one of the grates just as the laughter morphed into a cruel shout. "Get 'em!" The two women ducked into the opening, the metal edge biting into their skin as they crawled through the narrow tunnel. It was dark, the air stale and musty, making her throat tighten with each breath. But there was no turning back now. "I can hear them," the woman gasped beside her, her palms scraping against the rough surface. Panic threatened to rise again, but she focused, envisioning the moment they'd break free into the world outside. As they navigated the cramped space, the sounds of their pursuers faded into the background, and a twinge of hope flickered. Maybe they could find a way out. Maybe they could escape this nightmare. Suddenly, the vent opened into another room, a small, abandoned office cluttered with dusty furniture and overturned tables. She reached for the latch, her fingers trembling as they pulled it open. Light poured in, illuminating their faces with a harsh glow. They hesitated for a moment, the dread creeping back as they realized how exposed they were. "Come on," she urged. Before they could step out, a loud crash echoed behind them, jolting them into action. They scrambled out of the vent just as a figure lunged into the room, eyes wild with fury. "Found you!" he snarled, a grin spreading across his face that sent shivers down her spine. The woman beside her spun around, pipe raised high, anger coursing through her like a river. "Back off!" But just before the confrontation could begin, another sound met them, a booming explosion of voices, distant yet undeniable. "They're coming!" she shouted, realization hitting her like a freight train. "Who?" the woman gasped, but before her question could hang in the air, the answer crashed into view, and all they could do was brace for impact. What had started as an escape now spiraled into chaos, and in the depth of uncertainty, a new shadow loomed, one that would change the course of their fight. Did she still have a chance to save her son? Was freedom truly within reach, or had they unknowingly stepped deeper into the jaws of fate? As the walls began to shake around them, her heart pounded with an urgency that might just lead them to freedom or bury them deeper in this nightmare. The dust swirled in the beam of light as they stumbled into the room, the figure looming at the entrance still grinning, as if relishing their fear. For a moment, her heart sank. Was this the end? But then a loud commotion erupted from behind him, voices rising higher. "Get clear! Move back!" The shouting was urgent, punctuated by terms that made her blood run cold, orders, commands, the kind that made her instinctively brace for a strike. Before she could process it, the figure in front of them froze. He turned, the grin fading, replaced by a look of confusion. "What the hell?" he muttered, glancing back into the hallway. It was a pivotal moment, one that turned panic into opportunity. Another voice broke through the chaos, one sharp and crisp, cutting like a knife. "You're surrounded. Drop whatever you have, now." And just like that, the man was no longer a predator, but prey caught in a trap. The confusion turned to fury as he shouted, "I won't let you take them." He lunged forward, but before he could make a move, an armed figure appeared from the shadows behind him, a gun raised and steady. "Freeze!" The women exchanged frantic looks, recognizing their slim chance. They darted to the side, making swift chaos of cluttered desks, knocking over drawers, scattering papers as a diversion. "Don't move, or I swear I'll." The man's threat faded into a cloud of confusion as shots rang out. Bam! Bam! The echo rattled in her ears, each crack like a splinter in her mind. The sound was terrifying and liberating at once. The standoff erupted into chaos, shouting filled the air, mingling with the clattering of feet and the clang of overturned furniture. "Come on, go!" she hissed, pulling the other woman past a battered desk. The unexpected backup had shifted the balance, but it wouldn't last long. Another shot rang out, the force pushing her back against a wall, a jagged edge of fear flying through her. "Stay down!" the armed figure shouted. She couldn't tell if that was supposed to be directed at them or their pursuers. But there was no way to risk being caught in the crossfire. Her heart pumped, skimming the brink of panic. Just when she thought they might have a chance, the lights flickered, an ominous prelude to further disarray. "There's too many of them." The armed figure's voice quivered as the wall shook, and she could hear the frantic sound of footsteps echoing behind them. "Where's the exit?" the woman asked, scanning the room with wild eyes. They had to escape, they couldn't get trapped in this nightmare where everything lines up so perfectly for a catastrophic ending. "There. The window." She grasped the woman's arm, pointing to a grimy pane that might still hold some promise. With mounting urgency, they scuttled toward it, their eyes set on the sliver of hope outside, past the chaos unfurling behind them. "On your knees," the armed figure barked, aiming at the man with a desperate intensity. She glanced back. But her stomach twisted in dread, seconds stretched into a lifetime as the chaos mounted behind her. "Hurry!" They yanked open the window, the rusty frame protesting, and they both scrambled through. "Jump!" she yelled, heart thrashing in her chest. The ground was further than it seemed, a hard drop into the desolation below. But she couldn't stop now. Before she could leap, another voice drowned out the chaos, "No. Don't let them escape." A new wave of figures surged into the room, faces shapeless under masks, their presence obliterating the light of hope. With everything rocking on a precipice, she had to make a choice. A jump into the abyss or stay and confront the growing terror behind them? The woman pushed past her, adrenaline kicking in. "Go!" she yelled. "We have to fight." Fighting? It wasn't her first thought. But in the blink of an eye, everything changed. She felt it fear morph into something sharper, an insatiable drive for survival. The sound of fresh boots thundered toward them, the certainty that whatever path lay ahead promised more than just escape. It promised a challenge, a fight, and the chance to reclaim what they had lost. As they turned to face the impending onslaught, the air crackled with tension. Would they lock themselves in battle for freedom, or was this yet another trap waiting to spring? A figure emerged from the shadows, and a familiar chill washed over her. It was the last face she expected to see here. "None of you are making it out alive." In that moment, she realized she had only begun to unveil the depth of the darkness surrounding them. With everything at stake, the fight was just about to begin. Would she be strong enough to confront her fears, or would it crush her underfoot? The world around her blurred into a whirl of chaos, and the chilling voice still echoed in her ears. All she could see was the advancing figures, their masked faces a mere suggestion of the malice they carried. Time bristled with danger, and it felt like every heartbeat drummed a battle cry. "Fight!" she screamed, values of motherhood instinctually crashing down upon her. Survival had become primal here and now. The man before them, once a figure of fear, now turned desperate as the gloom deepened. With grim determination, she felt courage surge within. Maybe they could turn the tide. One of the masked figures lunged forward, an arm outstretched. She reacted instinctively, throwing a nearby metal chair toward him. It clanged loudly, sending him sprawling back. Her heart raced. Was that real? Could they actually fight back? Grab something! She yelled, searching frantically through the scatter of desks and debris. Papers flew in wild arcs around her as bodies collided with furniture. The office was a war zone, and adrenaline blinded her to fear. Walls were now her shield, and though those phantoms closing in felt insurmountable, survival felt necessary. Vital. The other woman, fierce and focused, hoisted up a spare metal rod, her eyes glimmering with resolve. Let us hit them hard. It was a rallying cry that burned bright, igniting something fierce within her too. Suddenly, a loud crash resounded, exploding through the cacophony. The ceiling above splintered, sending a cascade of debris crashing down. They could hear the fracture of foundations, feel the vibrations coursing through the very floor they stood on. The chaos forced their enemies to pause, giving them a window, but it wouldn't last long. Move! She grabbed the woman and yanked her toward a corner where some filing cabinets lay toppled. It wasn't just an escape route, it was a vantage point, a strategic hold against impending doom. A burst of scuffling feet echoed as the remaining masked assailants regained balance. The fierce clash of bodies was a vicious dance, and she could see moments of battle played out in stark clarity. Each flash of motion sunk like a blade into her resolve, urging her to fight for every second. Keep your head down! She shouted as the masked figure reappeared, fury rimming their movements. She swung their makeshift weapon, connecting with a solid thunk. The guy staggered back, and a flicker of triumph ignited inside her. She could fight. They both could. The others behind her surged, pushing through the narrow path they created. The room began to close in like an eerie trap of darkness. She pitched her voice over the commotion. We need to push back. To the door. Every moment counted, every breath an offering to desperation. The heavy sound of footsteps crackled like lightning in the shadows. She caught sight of the ominous figure, the one who said they wouldn't make it out alive, his menacing grin now morphing into something darker, eyes gleaming with unfurling madness. Suddenly, a slice of revelation rattled through her, igniting the pit of her stomach. He the one behind this all, she realized, the pieces of a bigger puzzle crashing into view. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was much more. It was about confronting an unseen enemy holding their fates like puppets. With renewed urgency, she gripped the woman's arm tighter. We find that man, we end this. Once and for all. As they rallied their strength and determination, a piercing scream split through the air, paralyzing them momentarily. The chaos muted, moments cascading into stillness, a ghostly pocket in which dread echoed. They turned to see it was one of the attackers, his shadow now warped as if transformed. Something dark had overtaken him, something engineered without their knowledge. Perhaps. The atmosphere thickened, tension palpable. Hairs prickled along her arms, fear intertwining with anticipation. They were on the edge of discovery, a pivotal moment burrowing into the core of their desperation, amplifying their fight against the ebbing tide of dread. But before they could make a move, another masked figure emerged behind them, blocking their path, a slow, deliberate smile creeping across his face, the same unsettling smile she had seen before. You thought escaping was that easy? In that instant, she realized the deepest horror. It wasn't just survival, they needed the strength to overcome the very orchestrators of their fears. The battle for freedom had merely begun, with so much left unknown. What dark truths awaited them now? The chaos didn't fade as she had hoped, it only escalated. The tension hung thick in the air, the cruel reality of their enemies tightening around them like a noose. She heard the beat of her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest, each thump a reminder of what's at stake. But amidst the rage and turbulence, clarity struck like lightning. Together. She shouted, rallying her newfound ally. We fight this together. That declaration sparked something deep within them, igniting a will to survive that surged stronger than fear. Don't back down. The woman replied, her grip on the metal rod tightening. Each breath felt heavy with urgency as their enemies surged forward, grim determination etched on every face. As the masked man advanced, she swung her makeshift weapon, hitting him directly in the gut. The dull thud echoed, and he staggered back, eyes wide with shock. It didn't stop him entirely, though. It was just a momentary setback. Push to the staircase. She yelled over the fray, motioning for the exit. They had to reach higher ground, had to find a way out of this trap. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she darted forward, leading the way as they zigzagged through the chaos. The echoes of clashing bodies and the shouts of confusion chased them, but something shifted in the air. The tide of the battle was changing. The armed figure who had tried to subdue them earlier was now distracted, engaged in a heated standoff with the group. It brought a shimmer of opportunity, a break they could seize. Now. The woman urged, charging ahead. They broke free from the fray and stumbled toward the staircase. Each step felt like a barrier between the horror below and the chance of safety above. The creaking stairs felt tainted with dread, but determination overshadowed fear as they pushed up against the panic rising in their throats. Come on. She called, heart racing. They reached the top, breathless and buzzing with adrenaline, peeking over the railing. The scene below was a tempest of arms and fury, blurry figures caught in a whirlwind of chaos. Voices rose, but clarity eluded them in the the end of the corridor. A door sat ajar, a glimmer of hope glowing through the chaos. There. She pointed, beckoning the woman to follow, but as they moved forward, heavy footsteps echoed behind them. She risked a glance, dread creeping into her gut as she spotted the suited man sprinting up the stairs, his eyes locked on them. Stop! He roared, voice a thundering storm against the backdrop of chaos. Time slowed, the world narrowing to this one moment. She felt ice run through her veins, the instinct to flee warring with the urge to stand her ground. But they had come too far to turn back now. With a mighty shove from the woman, they burst through the doorway, and the night air washed over them like a balm of freedom. The parking lot appeared quiet, the streetlights flickering like dying stars. They dashed across to the far side, hearts pounding in sync, lungs burning in desperation. Over there. The woman shouted, pointing to a small alley where a faded sign read exit. They could escape. The rush outward felt liberating, yet the shadows loomed thick, the dangers still at their heels, but hope surged. Their breaths mingled, buoyed by fierce resistance, as they raced toward the exit. With every step, she imagined her son, safe in her arms, and that vision propelled her forward. Then, chaos erupted. The suited man charged from behind, eyes blazing with rage. You want to get away from me? She spun around, raising the metal rod, heart pounding with primal instinct. Get away from us. The words came out stronger than anticipated. She stepped forward, swinging the rod with all the strength she could muster. It connected with his midsection, and he doubled over, but didn't fall to the ground. Run! The woman screamed. They took off, fueled by survival, darting into the alley and just beyond. She couldn't look back, couldn't see what would happen next, but she had to trust this leap of faith. Emerging into a dimly lit street, the world blossomed before them. Like an unwritten page. She felt the weight of her choices, the weight for her son's future pressing hard against her chest. It wasn't just about escape anymore. She needed answers. They stopped, panting, the adrenaline dulled somewhat as the immediate danger paused. What now? The woman asked, searching her eyes for clarity. The question hung heavy between them. We go to ground, she said, recalibrating her thoughts. Find people who know what's really going on, leaders who can help us fight against whatever is happening. Or whoever is behind this, the woman added, fire returning to her eyes. It's time for a real fight. The realization settled, igniting a sense of resilience. Something shifted in her. As they made their plans, she felt that whatever winds were blowing against them, they might still be able to harness them to make their escape permanent. With vigorous breath, she looked at the horizon. The journey forward would be a gamble, a fight for freedom, but it was one worth having. They had stepped from shadows into a new dawn, ready to claim the life they fought so hard to protect. As the city lights flickered, illuminating the night, they set out determined to blaze a trail that shook the foundations of the darkness they had survived. Together, they were unwavering, together, they could change everything, and the promise of hope echoed against the night, fierce and alive, as they sprinted boldly into the uncertain horizon. Now, we need you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that unravel the fate of our heroes. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and make sure this journey reaches even more hearts. We want to hear your reactions and theories about the ending, so flood the comments section below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters more than you know, and only true fans understand the importance of coming together for something bigger.